Hello, my Scrappy friends. It is Jess here from the Scrappy Sisters, and thank you for joining me for my last January Kitaholic Kits design team layout. So for this layout, I took the super gorgeous, is it gingham? I don't know, plaid, paper that came in the kit. It's the one that has the beautiful florals on the back that I didn't keep. I don't know how I managed that, to not keep it, but I didn't keep it. I think I might come back later and gut the paper, because I didn't even gut the paper, because this white paper was super, super, super thin. I thought it needed the weight, but I'm now just regretting my decision to not keep some of those florals because they're so beautiful. So anyway, moving on, I cut down my piece of paper to about 11 inches is the white paper, and I roughed up the edges. It was actually really hard to rough up the edges of this paper because it's so thin, but I did rough up the edges a little bit. I then cut out of just paper from my stash in sort of a matching orange color. I then cut some 2.5 inch squares. And I've cut 12 of those, as you can see. And first of all, I stitched those. So I hand pierced all the holes and I stitched those round with thread. You absolutely could use your sewing machine as well. That would be a similar look, a little bit different because obviously the thread's a little bit more perfect and also a little less thick to the thread that I used. But my sewing machine was not in action last night, so I hand stitched it myself anyway. And then after hand stitching, I then distressed the edges of each of those as well. Then I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to fill the entire page because I want to make sure my photos can pop just a little bit more off the page. I don't want them to get completely lost, and by having that little bit of white down the bottom, it kind of anchors the photos to the bottom of the page. And it also gives my title somewhere to go. So I'm just popping those up on foam. Again, I've matted these photos with the same matching orange that I made from the squares. So they are going to get a little bit lost, but I think the people in the photo will be enough to jump out. I realize this is a very orange layout, which is a little bit unusual for me, but it's because Jack is wearing an orange t-shirt. It just kind of worked. I do tone down the orange a little bit by pulling in the 2x2 inch cut apart sheet and the squares in the cut apart sheet. And that's what I'm about to do now. So I'm now going to layer some of the 2-inch cut aparts, 2x2 cut aparts on top of each of my little 2.5 inch squares. I don't use the 2x2s on every single square, and I don't fill them all with 2x2s, but I definitely embellish all of the ones you can see, not the ones underneath the photo. And mostly I use the 2x2s because that was a little challenge set by Steph, just to show how you could use those 2x2 inch cut aparts to create a layout. So that is what I am doing today. I chose a lot of sentiments that are about how, thankful and grateful and all of that, because the person that Jack is in the photograph with is his kinder teacher. She left at the end of this year, so he got to finish the year with her, which is awesome. And he was in her room for 2 years, so he was really, really lucky to just learn so much and have so much with her, and they had such a beautiful bond. So I just want to document that before he starts prep this year, which I cannot believe. So you can see I've nearly exclusively used the 2x2 cut apart sheets to fill all of the squares. I have, of course, added a few extra embellishments with some stickers, mostly the stickers because they're that bit smaller. But this one I'm doing now, I have used ephemera instead, just to add a little bit of difference. And I do use another piece of ephemera as well. I tried to use one more piece of ephemera in the top row instead of all the cut apart squares, but the rest of the ephemera I had left was just too large and it just wasn't going to work. So that's okay. I am happy with how this looked, but yeah, I'm popping a piece of ephemera here, that little house, which is kind of sort of representing the school, I guess, but that's okay. And then the title right here. I actually had a lot of trouble coming up with a title. I really wanted to use 2 different fonts in Vicky's collection because I just love the look of that, and I think it worked really well for this particular layout. But I couldn't figure out which words I wanted to use. And when I was breaking up her already set phrases, the two words that I wanted to use, like one from one phrase and one from a different phrase, they would end up being the same font or something silly like that. And I know that that is all a first word problem, but that was the problem I was facing. So in the end, I just picked right here, because that's sort of what I was thinking, right here, right now. Then I'm going to pop on some of the super cute little bits. I tried to get an arrow onto the page, but I just couldn't figure out where would be a suitable place to put it. So just going to pop some stars and love hearts as well in the beautiful gold around the page, just because that helps sort of bring in a bit more of the gold that I'm picking up in the stickers and in that golden arrow. And once they are on, I will, of course, add some splatters, and the splatters are going to be in gold and black. I wasn't heavy-handed with my splatters, which was sensible of me, but I did just splatter them anywhere, which was a little bit crazy. So normally I'm a bit more particular about where my splatters go, because I like them to be sort of around each of the clusters. But as there are no specific clusters in this, the whole layout is clusters, I just rolled with it. Now, if you follow my channel, you might recognize a layout like this as being very, very similar to the circle layout that Katie created for my advent calendar a couple of years back, and that then I scrap lifted again later on. So this is just another spin on that, but with squares instead of circles. But I hope you have enjoyed this process video. It was wonderful to have you tag along with me for the month of January, and I cannot wait to see you again in February. Bye, everyone.